Welcome back to Newsmaker Live. As we said earlier in the program, we're paying tribute to the late John Odlum, Stanley Nicholas John Odlum, who passed away yesterday after a long illness. And, you know, it was a very sad moment for a lot of people, those who knew him very well and those who had the opportunity to meet with him. We have a call on the line, so we'll take that call in a second. Just to let you know that he was the longest serving parliamentary rep for Castries South. He served there for some 23 years. And even after he demitted office, his parliamentary office, you know, the constituents of Castries South still considered him as their representative, you know, taking nothing from the person who is in that seat right now, Dr. Robert Lewis, but, you know, having seen someone for so many years of your life, you know, it would be only natural to gravitate towards that person. And that was pretty much the case in that constituency, because they saw him there for so many years and so often, you know, at Capitol Hill and, you know, in Cicero, in other parts of that constituency. And yeah, people generally loved him, you know, just because of his manner. And I guess that stemmed from his work in the communities a long time before in sports and also social work. So 1974 was his entry into Parliament as a representative for that area. As I said before, winning 71% of the vote. He was returned to office in 1979. And also in 1982, after the St. Lucia Labour Party debacle, you know, and the UWP came back into power after, you know, the Labour Party imploded following that election. We see here Jono and Hart and his best friend, Cecil Lay. And when these two came together, it was just non-stop laughter and jokes, you know, because I keep on saying it, and some of you may not understand it. You know, the politics back then, there they are again, Cicely and Jono. Every opportunity they had to be together, they would take. And they were like brothers. I think Cicely, he made that comment to one of our local media houses that they were more than brothers. They were that close, best friends, and, you know, they shared a lot together. 1982, as I said, in 1997, he was reunited with the St. Lucia Labour Party under Dr. Kenny Anthony, and he was returned to office. 2001, he also ran, and he won the seat in Castries South, but decided not to run in 2006. It was nice that he was honored during the Sports Award this past Saturday. And there was a clip of him, you know, that was pre-recorded, obviously, because he took ill and was taken to VH on Sunday. So, you know, while he was still alive, there was this tribute paid to him and his contribution to sports on the island. That was Saturday night at the National Cultural Center. Was it let me not say that because I can't remember exactly where it was, but tribute was paid to him and his work in sports during the National Sports Award, which is, of course, part of Independence celebrations this past Saturday night. So as we said, we have the number on the screen, and we're inviting your telephone calls so you too can pay tribute to a former parliamentary representative for Castries South, John Odlum, who died at the age of 76 yesterday. Talking about independence, I mean, what does independence mean to you? A lot of people celebrate independence, and a lot of people, you know, talk about independence as an event that happens once every year. The anniversary, yes, it comes around once every year. This is when the whole ceremony, the pomp and flair of being independent really took place. But then independence, as we discussed last week with the cabinet sec, who is the chairman of the National Independence Committee, Darrell Montrop, that independence is a process, and people like John Odlum would have contributed greatly to that process, whereby, you know, we left the shackles of colonialism and we became a free nation. We have a call on the line. Good evening, caller. Thank you for your contribution. Please go ahead.
Yeah, well, what happened there? You could show any picture of Mr. John, respect to the max, but just do so Kenny Anthony at all. You don't see that man's face on TV at all.
Mm. Well, I'm not sure exactly why the caller would feel that way, but if we have pictures of John Odlum, Jono, and the current Prime Minister, you know, then, you know, we'll show them. Good evening, caller. Please go ahead.
I agree with the last caller. Bye.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm not sure exactly where that is coming from, but we appreciate your contribution. We'll accept any contribution. As I said, this is your program, your time to make your contribution, pay tribute, and it would be nice if you would do that instead of making the comments that I would say neither here nor there. You know, we're paying tribute to a man who has given so much of his life, 23 years, more than 1/3 of his life, to representing a constituency, and more than that, because this amounts for only the time that he was an elected representative in the House of Parliament, but that representation would have gone beyond those years. He would have still sought, you know, equal rights for people. The Labour Party said that he had a love for the downtrodden and the dispossessed. So it's not only in politics that you fight for the downtrodden and dispossessed. Even when you're out of the elected positions, you do that. We have another call on the line. Please go ahead, caller, but please turn down the volume on your set.
Hello.
Hi, good evening. Please go ahead.
I'm calling to send my deepest sympathy to John Odlum's family. I'm calling from Labrie, and he was my son's godfather. And that's sad to know that he passed away, because he was an icon. And I hope my son follows in his footsteps.
Can you share with us, since you said he was your son's godfather?
Yeah.
I mean, are there any memories of him that you'd like to share with our viewers at this time?
Yeah, well, he always used to come because I had a bar in Labrie. Well, Cecily is my child's father, so he always used to come to the bar and stuff and patronize. And, you know, I knew him as a man who was very friendly, and he was very loving too. He would share jokes and all that kind of thing. Would always make you smile when you're down. That's how I knew John. And he'll be dearly missed. Yeah. So I just want to say I'm sorry for the loss of Jono, and he'll be dearly missed.
Thank you very much for that contribution, and I'm sure that there are so many other people who share similar sentiments about Jono, because he was such an agreeable person, you know. I mean, there was never a dull day, and I guess with maturity as well, you know, that comes when you're younger and you're more fiery. You take life more serious, if I'm to put it that way. But then when you grow up and you get old and you see what's very important in life, then your outlook on life changes. We just missed that call. You know, your outlook on life changes, and you realize what's really important, you know, family, friends, loved ones, health. You know, that's a big thing as well. Good evening, caller. Please go ahead.
Yes, good evening, Mr. President.
Good evening, sir.
Yeah, I just want to join in. Paying condolences over to Brother John and his family. It was just a few days ago that I had a distinct pleasure of contacting Mr. John Odlum, Jono, to seek some information from him while in the course of my duties, I was trying to get some information together, and the only person I knew who had gone through that experience, that means serving in Parliament, particularly during the years of the budget debate, and I was missing out some names, and I was trying to seek him. And of course, I introduced myself, and he immediately identified me, and he said to me, if Muhammad cannot go to the mountain must come to Muhammad. And then he told me that he wasn't too well. But my fondest memories of Jono is when in the days of football, and I consider him one of the best defenders that St. Lucia had. The two before him that I'll put, in fact not before him, but he ranked together with Tank, a guy called Mason, and Philip of in the CYO days, and Jono. Those three guys, I think they had formed the Central National Team, and they used to call them the Wall. And to go through that wall, if you miss one, you get the other, and that is what I remember from him. In fact, his team was Wolves.
Right.
And they had Mama Wolves and two people who were always with them. They used to call them Mama Wolves and Papa Wolves, and there was a very strong team. But of all time, in my little interaction with him, maybe around the Marshall Field, because in the area I grew up on the north side, especially when they had their goals there, he was always laughing, always joking. Something to say. In fact, he wasn't a comedian at all by far, but he just take life. He'll put his hand on your shoulder and say, "Do not worry." And there is something in it. Whatever he said, they're going to just make you laugh, and you just finish up. So I'm sad to hear of his passing, but I guess that's the cycle of life, and we all wish his family, his close friends, to take it as the Lord said, and of course it will be over sometime. You will always remember him, but as I said, it's a cycle of life, and I want to just again pay my condolences to him and his family. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You said he was not a comedian, but I don't know. There are so many people out there who might want to disagree with you because
not a comedian in the sense well, comedians are generally smart and intelligent people, but in the context of written poetry, like he just joke, but
right.
He had that nice and wonderful human side of him. That wherever there is a dark cloud, he must show you a silver line. You just joke it up. And as I heard Earl Busquets say on television tonight, and that's rightly so. Yeah, it's a few politicians you could put in terms of just his openness. I think Philip J is one of those guys I'll fit in that bracket. But he was generally a nice person by the house, particularly around the Marshall Field in the time of playing football and doing other things. He was generally a nice guy. But in that context, I will say he is a comedian in terms of seeing the nicer side or the softer side of any problem that you'll face.
Yeah. Yeah, very much so. And another thing, thank you very much, caller, for your contribution. Another thing about him was that it doesn't matter how much information he possessed. He would not come across like, he knows everything, or, well, I know more than you, so I'm telling you. There was always dialogue. There was also a discourse, if you were to discuss a particular topic, and it was not him imposing what he knows on you. Good evening, caller.
Yes, good evening.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, this is the recipient of the second Lifetime Award achievement. And this is Michael Hippolyte.
Okay.
John has been a personal friend from 1955. John, our ties got closer through the instrumentality of Julian Hunt.
I see.
Right. He attended. We became closer and closer because of going and watch matches, limited over matches. Right. And he was a CDC friend of mine. Also Rupert Branford.
Yes.
Who worked together with them. And Jacqueline Hippolyte, who is a personal friend. Jono, will always be in my life, right? And I became very sad when I learned of the death of John O. And tears came from my eyes up to yesterday when I was talking with Errol Hunt. I remember John O very well with Spas and Helen, right? And I was also a personal friend of Amon. And every Christmas he came around, and John was so popular. There's no disregard for the current holder of the seat. And I love the good that John walked on. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that contribution. And someone who knew him very well, Michael Hippolyte, said who had known John Odlum from 1954. That is, wow, 60 years, around 60 years. That's a very long time to know an individual. It's a lifetime of knowing him, so he would have known very many things about him if they were that close. And yes, it is truly sad. The United Workers' Party as well issued a statement expressing its sadness at the passing of Mr. John Odlum, and noted that, you know, in the heyday of the politics, he was part of the Odlum brothers, as they were called at the time in the 70s and 80s. Of course, one of the founding members, as I said, of the Progressive Labour Party, the PLP. And the resume is extensive, and in 2001 he became the parliamentary secretary after that election in the Ministry of Health, Human Services and Family Affairs. And of course, even though he was in that position, there was no real rush to be, you know, in government. You know, when I say in government, as a member of cabinet, you know, fighting for a post, you know, and that would be part of his life. We have another call on the line. Good evening, caller. Please go ahead.
Hello, good night.
Good night, sir.
Yeah, well, what happened is that John Odlum is a down-to-earth man, right? And that man been running that hospital road and whatever you have. But what I don't like there is that the hypocrisy that keep going around. I remember when John was running for a show on the other constituency, the way Kenny used to treat him in his words. And when the PLP closed down the party, Kenny Anthony came to John like a little baby on his knees and begging him to go with a mic everywhere and begging the people to vote for SLP. I remember that thing as a little boy. I remember that very well. He'll treat John, but now he's dead. All of us will see.
All right, thank you for your contribution. I mean, I can't say that I know of what the last caller spoke about the ill treatment. I know there are the ebbs and flows of politics, you know, so there are certain things that some people might perceive as ill treatment, but then it's all part of politics. I'm not sure exactly what he was referring to then, but you know, at every point in time during one's political career, there would be, you know, disagreements. There would be issues on which a political leader or even a member of the party would not see eye to eye with another member of the party, and that is all part of the democracy. I am not defending anything, but I'm just saying that we have to be also big enough to accept that disagreements do not necessarily mean that, you know, people are enemies or people are ill-treated. And as I said, you know, I was at Jono's house yesterday when the Prime Minister called, and, you know, he was weeping inconsolably, uncontrollably. And, you know, it just, I guess, took him as a shock. It hit him that Jono had passed. So, I mean, let's not hold disagreements to people, you know, and all of us have some of them at times. In our families we do, you know, and it does not mean that because probably I have a disagreement with my wife, I don't see eye to eye with her on a particular issue, that means that we are enemies or we cannot live together. Of course we're married because we love each other, you know, so let's not make too much of those things. But personally, I wish that we could go back to some of the politics, or the way politics were back then, where people disagreed on issues, but it was still agreeable. They could still sit down and have a meal together. They could still sit down and drink together and laugh over things that were, you know, truly funny, and not say, oh, well, is that person saying this or this person doing this, so I'm not going to stay around. So just some food for thought there. You're watching Newsmaker Live. As we said, we're paying tribute to the late former parliamentary representative for Castries South, Stanley Nicholas John. We'll take this call, and after we'll go to break. Good evening, caller. Please go ahead.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah, well, I have been listening to your program, and I realize a lot of St. Lucians, they like to dwell on too many negative things. The last caller spoke about in the 80s, he was young. So Kenny Anthony was nowhere wrong at that time. Kenny came late. So what's he talking about? And is deceased. It's better they're talking about the good about him. They're just making issues out of everything. It's time for St. Lucians to grow up.
I totally agree. But let's focus. I mean, he said, let's not dwell on him. Let's focus on John.
Good things that he did.
Right. So can you remember some of the good things that he did? Do you remember him? Do you remember his contribution to our society, to the politics, to community development?
Youth and development, and he did a good job in club football. He was with everybody, a down-to-earth man. You know, let's look at him for what he did. Let's look at the good in him and forget about politics and make everything into politics. That's what I just want to say.
All right, caller. Thank you very much. We'll take a quick break on Newsmaker Live. When we come back, we'll continue with your calls, and also we'll discuss, as I said, some of the programs or plans for Independence 2013. Don't go away. Stay with us.